What's up, everybody? It's George back again with Warp Charge Gaming here with you know Connor and my new friends Jordan and Dean with Field of Fire Gaming. I want to get a quick chance to talk to these guys. I just came to your guys' first tournament for me to ever experience.
Yeah.
Have you guys been doing this for a while, or?
About a year, right?
Yeah, going on a year.
Yeah, mad respect.
About May-ish.
Do they usually sell out?
No, normally we started with about 18 people. I think we worked our way up to about 26.
Yeah.
We got 36 today. So
Yeah,
Man, it was
38 signed up.
You see the pre-signs, you know, that doesn't, like, I know that we're trying to run some events coming up in later in the year, and that's kind of the whole goal, right? Is get people to sign up before it ever starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pre-registration really helps us. We've never started a tournament on time, but having 36 people already signed up with all the pairings ready to go really helps us out.
Right. Are you guys usually using Best Coast pairing apps, or is that new?
We've been doing that. So we had our own pairing system for a bit, just basically using an Excel spreadsheet and random pairings. But then with Best Coast, we found that, and it just ended up speeding things along so much faster.
It's a pretty sweet app, man. I gotta have mad respect for those people that put that together. You know, obviously they love the game, and they cared about the statistics to be out there to the world, and it adds a lot of value to the players. I know, like at Nova, the last year was kind of my first time getting into it, and it was like playing a video game, man. Like, especially when it's a multi-day tournament, and like the next day you're seeing your pairing, you're talking to all your buds over drinks.
You're already seeing table assignments, so you just literally roll in the door, like half asleep, but you know exactly where you're going, who you're playing. You can even do a little bit of research sort of thing ahead of time if they got lists loaded up.
Absolutely, and yeah, you can kind of check the meta out. If you're a subscriber, then you can look at what's going on at the major events, upcoming ATC.
Yeah, I mean that's what we do. That's what we do every time. I mean we're publishing after every major event like a best of. We do just a little bit of statistical analysis, but being able to rip the data off of Best Coast is huge for us.
Fantastic, and that leads into so we know that there's the ITC format was kind of based out of the West Coast, is kind of originated.
Yeah.
And you guys have started something called the STC.
Yeah, so it's Southern Tournament Circuit. That's what we're trying to do. The Southeast has Warzone Atlanta, but there's no real way for tournament organizers to get in touch with each other and like agglomerate scores.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, so on looking at the East Coast, as Jordan was alluding to, we've got the Atlanta scene is pretty huge with the Warzone guys. We've got the Nova scene up in Virginia, DC, Baltimore area. And then just Fayetteville. We have Fayetteville, Charleston, Columbia, Greensboro, and then Raleigh. Yeah, obviously.
I know my areas, we got Richmond, Charlottesville, Lynchburg, and those are typically the places I'm going to frequent tournaments. And I love the idea. I was so excited to hear about the concept, but it was all mysterious. Like, oh really? This is interesting? Because that's kind of how things get started, right? It's by people putting their mind to something and executing, which I respect and appreciate you guys not
trying. We're trying.
Yeah, hey. Yeah, go ahead. What's up, Connor?
Where did this idea first come about? Like, you guys were just sitting around having beers or whatever, and you were like, well, we need our own tournament circuit down where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, so what we were doing is actually we were prepping for ATC 2 years ago, I think, and Dean had basically been hitting up every tournament organizer, emailing them. We were trying to keep everything in a G-Doc, and that just wasn't working. We found tournament organizers don't want to just give you their data. A lot of people were kind of unorganized. So about a year and a half ago, we were like, why don't we start a thing to incentivize people to give us their scores. That gives us a better appreciation for the meta. We can do some analysis, and we started publishing that. And then we were like, oh, we can run our own tournaments. We can do this, because we were providing the structure to a whole bunch of other tournament organizers. Like, we should just do this ourselves.
How is it? So it's part of the ITC.
So what we do is we always report to ITC, because they're what people want, right? They want to get the
nationally established.
But last edition we were true followers of ITC FAQs, right? I mean, we thought that like stuff on invisibility was great, and we didn't get that from them this edition. I mean, I know they're working, I think, more closely with Games Workshop, but their rate of FAQ isn't coming out. Right now we're waiting on the fact that we had no idea whether it would come out before our tournament or not.
I mean, obviously the big spring FAQ. On bated breath about.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's 3 weeks late. We don't have a lot of direction. So we said, hey, if they're not going to provide any direction for us, we should really take that up. And that really helped out our area, because we weren't getting a whole lot of ITC tournaments in our area.
Yeah, there's a lot of smaller ones.
Have you found some challenges to kind of putting your foot down and saying we're going to make a decision here?
We've had there's been a little bit of growing pains. People do because of ITC's establishment, and because they are a very strongly known name. A lot of people will go with them as though they were GW, which is fine, because again, they are very in tune with it, and they do keep in line on a lot of the things that they are proposing to end up making it in some form, at least into GW. But at the same token, we thought we were relatively intelligent individuals, and we would look at some things that GW didn't address.
Exactly, or ITC. There's plenty of moments of ambiguity, and then when that happens, we know that people can get pretty opinionated.
Exactly.
Right? And it's respect to that. I mean, that's what part of the love of the hobby is, that we're passionate about it playing in the most effective way possible, right? And we try to balance the game out. So I mean, respect to that, and taking the lead in that moment.
Yeah, and I mean, to be 100% honest, it kind of came down to player politics, right? I mean, when we run 2 or 3 tournaments, within months of each other, if we make a call one way at one tournament, we just have to make that call again later.
Sure.
Otherwise, someone's going to be like, well, that was made in the game-winning decision right there, whether I could Overwatch, whether I could see, or whatever this ruling is. So we really started writing it down and trying to stay ahead of the game just for consistency, to be fair to our players.
Organized approach, that sounds effective and awesome. And I'll just say, first time in Raleigh, North Carolina, playing Warhammer at the Event Horizon game shop here. Fantastic shop, great vibes. I think that it's a testament to you guys with the kind of crowd that showed up and the capacity of the crowd. There was a lot of smiles. There wasn't any feel badsies. People brought terrain to help set up, maxed out tables, brought an extra. You could feel a sense of community, and hats off to you guys for that.
For sure. That's
and the level of hobbymanship, painted armies, hobbymanship. Painted armies. All my opponents were just stand-up awesome guys. The first army I played was from John from White Metal Games.
Yes,
and John. It's on eBay, custom made Nurgle Knight.
Yeah, that thing's
gorgeous.
Yeah, no doubt.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, if you guys check some of our, you'll see videos and we have pictures and stuff. They actually did help us out with a couple full tables of terrain. They did some really good stuff. You'll see in a couple of the tables that are up close. I tried to get as good shots on them as I could, especially at 1 or 2 of the games.
I got some shots too. It was just fantastic. And again, super humble and fun-loving character there. Even though I might have one of the best-looking armies here. Even though I think that just shout out to Dark Creative. They won the best painted this time. They do fantastic work as well. Phil brought his army, brought the Harlequins, right? Yeah. Hats off to that. It was also fantastic.
For sure.
I think I saw he was on the Longboard with the Custodes recently. They're always showing off some amazing stuff. I just recently checked out their Facebook and was just drooling over all the awesome paint jobs. So check out Dark Creative. I feel like you guys are pretty well entwined as well, right? They're part of the community area.
Yeah, they come out on Tuesday nights, which is our game night, so we play with them. They're cool guys.
Yeah, awesome. Well, man, I mean, just so I don't fall asleep at the wheel or anything, I just really appreciate the time to talk with you guys. I'm stoked to come back for more. Hope to see you guys come our way.
Yeah, we will. For sure, we'll definitely be trying to do that.
Yeah, and I hope you guys out there, if you're checking this out, you need to come to Field of Fire gaming events and be a part of what's going on, because it is a badass time.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So, everybody, you guys keep taking care out there and taking fun seriously. Peace. What up, everybody? Here you see me face off against Alan's Ravenguard army. He was a fantastic player and opponent with a great list that really brought the heat. This was the first mission in the Field of Fire Gaming Spring Tournament. This is called Raid and Pillage. Again, they are kind of a twist on the ITC Championship mission, simply having the usual factors of kill something, score something, and then the attempt to kill more and score more than your opponent on each round. And with the secondaries being, in this particular case, raiding and pillaging the objectives, which can only be done to the ones in the enemy deployment zone. So each opponent would have 2 objectives that would be in the enemy deployment zone. They would be attempting to reach and then raid, which or pillage, which would then be worth D3 victory points and be removed from the board. So that was a very important factor to the outcome of this game. He went first. He deployed very consciously to my range of 36 inch with my smart missiles and heavy burst particularly. Obviously I do have some long range, but he placed well out of, he had a nice cover going on with these large line of sight blocking pieces of terrain, and it just didn't seem viable. I knew he had a lot of stuff coming in from reserves. Okay, so a little bit about Alan's list. Definitely packed a punch and brought the heat. It is a Ravenguard list as the primary faction with a few combos living within. It was a nice synergy as everything worked together. He had these 2 Storm Ravens and the Storm Talon as kind of the up in front, coming right at you, assault cannons and multi-meltas and heavy bolters and typhoon launchers, just chock loaded with weapons. And then he had the aggressor squad with the ancient joining them, giving them that when they died on a 4+, they would get to shoot again.
And then he had a few of his scout squad snipers being able to get some backfield objectives. So he ran those planes up my face. Because he stayed so far out of my range at the beginning of deployment, I had to opt to go second because I had no good shooting. Didn't want to move from my fire base to utilize Cal Yun, and I knew he was going to come at me. He had a ton of stuff in reserves, including the aggressors, because I knew he could deep strike those in, and then he taking a pretty big piece of his list as far as the way that it all synergizes is Lias Isodon. He is a master of ambush, can bring up to 3 other units in with him when he comes on the board, and that was a part of the maneuvering there, is dropping in the aggressors, bringing up the planes, and ambushing with Isodon and the Devastators. So he, turn 1, was like, I'm going to lay into you and go hard. He definitely, announced he was going to try to play pretty aggressive on this one and go for broke, and man, I thought he was going to take me down. He was coming in hot and putting in the hurt. The Riptides definitely started to perish, as you can see. And as things went along, I was getting pretty concerned. But after I got my double Kalyans off and did what I could with the shooting, removed my targets that I was choosing, which were the Aggressor, the Storm Talon, and the Storm Raven. Once they were removed, it was time to start focusing on those objectives. I just kept focusing on trying to get trying to deny him to score, or at least tie him out, so neither of us did. Trying to hold the line on where on his optimization of points, while trying to nickel and dime a few more up. And on my turn 3 movement forward into 4, 5, and 6, I literally was able to pull out some shenanigans at the very last turn 6. And in this tournament, it automatically goes to 6 and ends on 6. So that was a factor in kind of my list decision in the first place, knowing that it was kind of a late bloomer with scoring, and 2, how this game was going to be decided. So as you'll be able to see in the match here, I began to make my moves forward, banking on my 3-up invulns, taking the mortal wounds each time as I started doing my Nova reactors. I was lucky that he didn't pour too much attention into the Storm Surge, and I gotta say I did make some crushing saves. I was getting tons of 5s and 6-ups. That was really saving my butt on quite a few critical shots there. So whether it was the shield drones surviving a little bit longer than they were supposed to, or just nailing the saves at the right time so I didn't take the big heavy damage. So I kind of barely stayed alive as I moved one of my Riptides that was the most alive up the board. And the big move that was kind of the make or break bold decision was when I didn't do my invuln, when I hadn't crossed into security land yet. He still had Devastator squads, pointing down my throat. I had other targets that were more primary, and I had decided to, okay, no invuln save, going 2d6 on the Nova reactor and the assault move, so that I can try to jump over that wall, escape line of sight, and make my way to those objectives. And what do you know? I rolled a 10 in the assault phase, and was able to jump over the wall and then charge that unit, which the charge wasn't really even the benefit of the charge was that it denied him having more objectives than me. And so that was a pretty big deal. And I think in fact we ended up even on that one. And then I was able to raise the objective after that unit was killed, falling back and just murdering it, beating that I had to fly. And then on the final turn, I was able to get to the other objective, keep enough shooting going on to stop him from scoring, and raise that objective. And on that roll, had I rolled a 1 or a 2, it would have been a tie game. Anything otherwise, and that was what pulled the win. And lo and behold, there it was, nailed a 3 or 4 or something, and barely got the 1-point lead to win the game on the very last turn. A single die roll determining the outcome of the entire game. So it was crazy. We were both just going at it, having a great time, sweating bullets, and definitely on the edge of the seats. It was an intense game, and Alan was a fantastic player. So, thanks again, Alan. If you're watching this, appreciate you playing, man. It was a great mission and a great game to start off the tournament. And I went into the next round feeling good that I had a win under my belt and the opportunity to still, be able to compete for a top slot in the event. So, yeah, let's get to the next. Alan was very gracious and gave me a wonderful interview after the match, but I was a fool and did not get the button pushed to record, unfortunately. So instead, you're just gonna have to listen to the sound of my voice on this one. But man, it was a crazy game. Honestly, this is one of the most wildest games I've had in a long time. All right, this is mission 2 called Relics of Old. There is 4 objectives that are placed in the table quarters, and then once both sides are chosen by the players, they place a relic apiece, and it must be 6 inches away from another objective or the table edge, and then that objective is able to be moved no more than 9 inches each phase, and you can pick it up at any point when you make base-to-base contact with it. So I have a relic and he has a relic. We both pretty much put it in our deployment zones. I put the ethereal on top, so the character rule would be protecting it. The bonus point of the mission would be to hold the relic. So in order to hold it, you must actually have a model assigned to be carrying it. The only way to drop it is through death or passing it on. So there's 6 objectives, but 2 of them are relics, and that is pretty much the situation. That is how to get the bonus points on top of kill something, score something, kill more, score more. So I deployed in my usual fire base, and Will was my opponent, and he chose to go first. And Will dropped the Electro Priest in front of me, preparing for a charge, which is a bit scary going against the Tau forces, of course. And he also did some quick alpha strike with some shooting there, and he pretty much just went for broke. Yeah, he came in with Archon, hot and heavy, wanting to put down some of that flamer, multi-wound flamer action on some Riptides. He shot as much as he could into the Riptides and the shield drones. I was able to withstand that first round of shooting and take all the big blows onto the drones themselves and pretty much come out unscathed, which gave me a very powerful turn 1 as he had brought everything within my grasp. I was able to Kalyun and just unload. When I scored a wound, when I did my destroyer missiles, put that into the knight there, which was enough to then fire off the stratagem to be +1 to wound for all the Tau Sept. So that made it pretty easy work for my Ion Accelerator and Pulse Driver, one on a Riptide and one on the Storm Surge, of course, to lay down some heavy damage, as well as a few burst cannons there. I chose to use the stratagem, I think, command and control node to give my Riptide with the Ion Accelerator reroll to wounds to just make sure that I got one of those D6 damage shots through. So all in all, the night went away pretty quickly, and I spent the rest of my shooting just kind of clearing the chaff that was around me. On his turn, one thing to mention is that you'll see all those Electro Priests getting wiped with a deadly Overwatch. I pretty much killed it down to 1 man, and then it died in a morale check. From the charge there, and I was only firing with 3 Riptides, but 5s to hit, re-rolling because of counterfire defense systems. So Tau Sept with counterfire defense, I'm a big fan of. It did its job in that moment there. Several different army types have that component built within, if not completely dedicated around it, and I definitely feel the most comfortable with Tau Sept counterfire defense system as your kind of overall defense against that mechanism. You can almost count on that more so than the necessity of screens, is what I've found. And pretty much the investment into drones versus the bodies to screen has been my move with these big robots here. So the game pretty much went my way. His best weaponry for the Riptides was the Dune Crawlers there. They had some laser style shots that were heavy damage, but I was taking a 3-up invuln every round. After the first 2, I pretty much used the drones to survive through the first 2 rounds and be able to take the extra shots and Kalyun them. So after turn 2, as I began to forward move up the board, I 3-up invuln with my Nova reactors to withstand the heavy damage weapons from the Doom Crawlers. And the rest of his infantry with Call back in the back, they only had an 18-inch range and had to kind of stay put to hold those objectives. So I was I didn't have much to contest me as I moved up and just unloaded into the small fries around me and kind of cleaned up quickly. all in all, it was a fun game, and Will was a cool guy and a nice, gracious opponent. And the mission itself lent to be a tactically fun one, as I found through my practice games and this one continue. I think, honestly, that this one is one of the ones that I was most capable of doing well in, because the bonus point was not very difficult to obtain each round. Well, I had the ability to shoot my opponent off of the relic when they held it on their end. So it was the one that I was best suited to through my practice sessions, I discovered. So let's get on to mission 3 here. Okay, final matchup, mission 3, going against Chris B and his Dark Eldar. This is for glory and death. 4 objectives are on the board, and when you kill a character, that is worth a point, and when a character scores an objective, that is also worth an additional bonus point, in addition to, of course, kill something, score something, kill more, score more. So Chris did a great job at, recognizing what could happen and what he wanted to do. He deployed his what was on the board, which was very little, in comparison of what the strength of his army was in reserves, while a portion of his army that felt definitely not the prime target. All right, so mission 3 against Chris B with his Dark Eldar. This is for glory and death. There's 4 objectives on the board, and there's bonus points awarded for scoring an objective with your characters or for killing characters. I had the option of first turn, but I couldn't again choose it based on how he had deployed. He had put all the strength of his army in reserves with deep striking capabilities. So he did a great job at deploying out of range of my Riptides. If I were to make my move a 12, he was still out of range of my missiles. I could have potentially Moncad advanced and gotten distance then, but he had put him, but with stratagems and his overall distance being -1 to hit anyways for the type of vehicles that were the things that he deployed on the board, it felt pretty not optimized of a first turn. So I decided to give him the turn. His Alpha Strike was heavy-handed. He placed, surrounded my backfield there, with characters inside of the raiders there that one of the characters was equipped to be able to charge me and not be overwatched. So that was kind of a big factor in what was going to go down. And one smooth play he did is he brought them in from reserves, and then in order to screen them, once he expected the vehicle to die that was carrying them, he flew his planes up on turn 1 so that once the raiders were destroyed, the planes would be there to be the next closest enemy to have to be targeted. So that was a smooth move. There was a bit of back and forth there. I took down several vehicles, and I took down the guys with the wings that do mortal wound damage because of the haywire. So it was crazy because he had gotten a Riptide down to 2 wounds on the first turn, so I'd still managed to live, and I knew I could play a stratagem that allowed me to fire as if I had not been wounded. And then beyond that, there was the Storm Surge was dropped in his profile. He was degraded from the amount of wounds he had taken, and so I knew I could heal him and potentially get D3 back and get over the line. When I went to play the regenerate, fire at full ballistic skill as if not wounded, that's what he used his Dark Eldar shenanigans on denying stratagems used, and I did not get that off. I was able to heal the Storm Surge up, but now I was a 5 up to hit with my Riptide, definitely less optimized for a turn there. I did my best to kill what I could, and it was a decent punch back, but it surely wasn't enough once it came down to him laying it into me after. So unfortunately, you shouldn't. You don't catch it here at the end. The battery died, and we were in the heat of battle there. But he got the character in that could charge without being overwatched. From the Storm Surge got destroyed, which you can see that happen, and unfortunately we both used all of our command points on the first turn. I tried to do everything we could. We were just rocking everything possible right out the gates, and we ended up both at 0 command points. So when he blew it up on turn 2, I rolled a 6 on the explode and had nothing to do about it, and it was a pretty deadly explosion. I mean, D6 mortal wounds to everybody. So on the Ethereal and Shadow Sun both dropped to 2 wounds, luckily not dying. But then soon after, his characters were able to make in the charge being that they could not be Overwatch, the one, and got Shadow Sun, got the Ethereal. Another Riptide died, and I was fairly surrounded, but with a couple Riptides left by the end of the game, we completed turn 5 with 2 Riptides left on the board, and I had been able to get some substantial kills on his army, but he had well outscored me by that time in the game on the amount of kills and the amount of scoring he was capable of doing, because I was pretty much had to be a fire base the entire game in order to maximize any potential of fighting back. So it was deadly. There was nowhere to run against the speed of the Dark Eldar. He played a great game, and it was super fun and intense. But all in all, wonderful tournament, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video.